Okay, this should be working. I'm going to share this stream real quick and then we'll get started. Again, if you're watching this video after it's gone live, you can always ask questions in the comments and I will answer them in the next video, potentially the next live stream. So right now I'm going to share this real quick and we will get started after that. Just so that way we're informing more people. Alright. So, Kajiki, I think it's, oh no, I forgot to look up the pronunciation of this storm. Kajiki, I think is how you pronounce it. Let me just make sure real quick by pulling up Google Translate. Sorry about that, I forgot to pull up the pronunciation.
Kajiki.
Kajiki. Okay, Kajiki. That makes more sense now. Kajiki. Kajiki. Okay. So, looking at Typhoon Kajiki's forecast over the next 2.5 days or so, but these impacts are going to be over the next 5 days or so. Looking at the forecast, though, of Kajiki, we can see that it is a typhoon right now, a mid-range Category 1. Over the next 12 hours, it's expected to rapidly intensify to a Category 2 before becoming a major typhoon, a Category 3, maybe even stronger, before making landfall in Vietnam, likely within the next 12 hours or so. Or wait, no, so excuse me, 24 hours or so. And then after that, it's going to quickly weaken to a tropical storm by hour 36, a tropical depression by hour 48, and a remnant low by hour 60. And likely dissipating over the next 72 hours. Its rainfall, though, will continue pushing further inland into Myanmar over the next 3 to 5 days. So let's start out by looking at the impacts that the system could bring. Now, this broad area of marginal impacts are most likely going to be in the form of rainfall. It starts in all the way from Guangdong and Guangxi provinces of China or westwards into pretty much all of Vietnam there, and then parts of Laos, and then parts of Myanmar as well, mainly central Myanmar, and then further inland there, eastwards into Thailand, the northern half there, mainly the rest of Laos there, and then the northern half of Vietnam, mainly northern 2/3 of Vietnam, all in that marginal category. This is mainly going to be for a rainfall threat, not necessarily a wind threat there. Now, if we look at the slight impacts over the next 5 days, it includes pretty much the entirety of Hainan Island there, and then westwards, pretty much the northern parts, the central parts of Vietnam there, moving westwards, and then the farther inland you go, the more of a rainfall threat this is. So you can see parts of Laos and then parts of Myanmar there, and then parts of northern Thailand in that slight category. And then we can see there further inland into Laos and then towards the coast of Vietnam. Now this area is most likely going to be a wind threat, not necessarily a rainfall threat. Mainly a combination of the two. Now if we take a look at the moderate category, we can see that there is going to be those potential impacts, moderate impacts for southern Hainan Island. Those could be typhoon force winds, or it could be heavy rainfall. Now looking north there into the northern portions of Vietnam, mainly northern central portions of Vietnam, there are moderate impacts, but that's mainly going to be in the form of rainfall, and looking further inland, that is going to be in the form of rainfall. Now, looking towards the southern end there, and also again including central Vietnam, that's going to be mainly in the form of typhoon force winds that are possible there. And then if we look at this red coloring right here, these are the possibility of major impacts. And the southern portion here is mainly going to be in the form of winds. There could be Category 3 typhoon force winds, strong typhoon force winds in this shaded area over here. And on this northern end, this is going to be in the form of rainfall. There could be easily 200 millimeters of rainfall, so flash flooding will be a concern in those areas. So again, this is the area of major impacts that we are going to be mainly focused on over the next 24 to 48 hours. And you can see the areas of moderate impacts here, which could see typhoon force winds or just heavy flooding in general. and you could see the areas of slight impact. So a lot of areas that we will have to be monitoring over the next mainly 2 to 5 days. And again, if you have any questions, you can always ask them in the chat, and I will gladly answer. Okay, now looking at the global view of tropics right now, what's going on? We have a fair amount going on across the globe. We have the remnants of Aaron, which are speeding off to the northeast there. That it has hurricane force winds right now, and it is expected to strengthen a bit, potentially to Category 2 force winds, before moving off towards Ireland and Iceland before doing a loop there. We also have Tropical Storm Fernan, which is moving north there. It has just become a tropical cyclone as of like 3 to 4 hours ago, and it is expected to strengthen potentially near hurricane strength before speeding off to the northeast. Could see some impacts to Bermuda, but it's unlikely. We also have 99L, which was pretty close to becoming a tropical cyclone, but a scatterometer pass confirms it is not a tropical cyclone just yet, so these chances will likely lower. But we could see some redevelopment in the Western Caribbean if it survives this portion of the Eastern Caribbean. Looking at the Eastern Pacific, we have an area of interest with a 60% chance of development, mainly in the next 4 days as it moves west-northwestwards. And we have an area of interest with a 10% chance, mainly in the next 5 to 7 day range and beyond that. Looking at the Western Pacific here, we have Typhoon Kajiki, which is moving westwards and going to make landfall in Vietnam within the next 24 hours. And we have another disturbance which may try to make a similar path, 93W, which has a 50% chance of development, mainly a 30% chance over the next 48 hours. It could try to quickly develop before moving over the Philippines, and a 50% chance overall in the next 7 days, mainly in the South China Sea. Now looking at the codes, we are in code pink right now. That is mainly due to Typhoon Kajiki, but we are also in code orange for some of these other systems, mainly 99L and 93, or excuse me, I believe it was, 99L and 93W, and we are in code yellow for Tropical Storm Fernan. Alright. Now, looking at the satellite imagery of Typhoon Kajiki, we can see that it is developing an eye there on the upper levels, and you can see it poking out right about there. We can see, though, that the system does have healthy outflow to the south, and the system is in a low shear environment, so you're seeing a lot of the thunderstorms a lot of the storm is pretty symmetrical. We can see some of those inner bands now impacting parts of southeastern Hainan Island and parts of Vietnam there, and you have a band over here off to the west in the Gulf of Tonkin that is beginning to move towards the coast of Vietnam. Looking at the infrared satellite imagery, and we can see here the system getting a lot of cold cloud tops of minus 70 to minus 80 degrees Celsius. You can see again this band over here ready to impact Vietnam, and you got these bands impacting Hainan Island. Looking at the radar imagery of the storm here, and we can see that eye pretty clearly on radar imagery in the core there and the eye wall there. And you can see some of the bands already impacting parts of Hainan Island there, as well as parts of Vietnam there. Those heavier bands are the ones we're worried about that are approaching Vietnam, mainly the northern portions of Vietnam. And yeah, you can also see central and southern Vietnam getting impacts from another band here. It's really, this whole section is a band. And then here's your actual main rain shield and then your main core. Staying to the south of Hainan Island and moving westwards. Now let's see, why is it strengthening? Well, if we take a look at the wind shear, we can see it's very low, and it's just allowed the system to begin its rapid intensification process and developing its core. And if we take a look at the sea surface temperatures, and we look at the forecast, where is it? Yeah, it's already there. We can see that the waters are 30 degrees Celsius in some areas. So I mean, there's a lot of fuel for this system to quickly intensify. And taking a look at the oceanic heat content, it is going to go in areas of less oceanic heat content, but because the system's moving pretty quickly, it's not going to be a problem. Looking at the distance from certain areas, we can see there's the center located right around there, and it is currently around 180 kilometers from the southernmost tips of Hainan Island, and it is currently around 500 kilometers away from where it's most likely to make landfall near Badan. And looking further inland, it's around 570 kilometers away from Laos, and roughly around 730 kilometers away from Thailand, and again, parts of around 1,000 to 1,100 kilometers away from more inland parts of Thailand, or excuse me, Thailand. Looking at the models on the system, the European model does show the system strengthening potentially to a Category 2 or even Category 3 strength before moving into Vietnam, and then staying a possible tropical depression or remnant low by the time it moves inland into Thailand, even Myanmar. And it doesn't really form that next system until it moves into the South China Sea and the Gulf of Tonkin, 93W. Looking at the American run, it does show the system rapidly intensifying into a major Category 3 typhoon before it plows into Vietnam. And it does have that next system developing as a pretty broad system. It also shows another disturbance there, two other systems developing in the Philippine Sea. Now looking at the German run, this also shows it becoming a major Category 3 typhoon before slamming into northern Vietnam, and then moves it into Thailand and Laos. It does have that system after developing, but it stays quite broad. Looking at the Canadian run, it does have the system strengthening only to around a Category 1 to Category 2, but it does have that next system in the South China Sea Philippine Sea, 93W, becoming a typhoon before it enters the South China Sea, before slamming parts of China and Vietnam as a possible typhoon. This is likely a higher end scenario. Looking at the European ensembles, they are pretty consistent, though, that it is going to stay to the south or at least skim the coast of Hainan Island before moving into Vietnam. So this system doesn't really have a whole lot stunting its intensification. So it is likely to become a major typhoon before it slams into Vietnam. We can also see ensembles showing 93W there, potentially becoming a typhoon before moving into Hainan Island. A lot of these ensembles do form it. That's why we're giving it around a 50% chance of development. And it is fairly consistent, at least on the European ensembles, where it's going to go. Now looking at this here, it's a mess on here, but generally consistent that something's going to be moving to the northwest and potentially into the South China Sea. See, now looking at the Canadian run, whoops, I already showed that to you all. Looking at the American ensembles on here, that's what I forgot to show, my bad. Let me open that up. Looking at the American ensembles, it is still somewhat spread on what it's going to do. Is it going to skim the coast of Hainan Island, or is it going to stay to the south? Majority have it staying to the south, and that's why it could strengthen to a major typhoon before moving inland and quickly dissipating. Looking at 93W, it's quite uncertain as to where it's going to go. Is it going to stay out over here and dissipate, or is it going to move farther west into the South China Sea and quickly strengthen? We can see that on here. There is, what was I going to say, Kajiki, and then here is 93W. I'm going to take a quick break real quick. Give me like, let's see. Give me like 5 minutes and I will continue the coverage. Again, sorry about that, was just eating something. Alright. Yeah, sorry about that. Alright. Now, continuing the coverage on the system, we can look at radar imagery. We can see this heavy band right now in the Gulf of Tonkin that is going to be approaching Vietnam over the next couple of hours or so, and that could lead to some pretty bad flash flooding. Again, it doesn't have to be the core of the system. That can be gradual flooding. These outer bands here with the heaviest rainfall rates, you can see all that lightning activity in them. That is going to be the main issue for this system as it moves, or as these bands move westwards of flash flooding potential. Again, we can also see these bands here moving into parts of Hainan Island there, and then you can see the eye and its eye wall there. Its core looking quite nice. You can also see a band here now impacting the coast of Vietnam. Let's see what else there. Okay. And now let's take a look at the rainfall potential this system could deliver over the next 5 days or so. Looking at the European run, the parts of Hainan Island over the next 5 days could see as high amounts of 300 millimeters of rain, and parts of Vietnam here could see up to 400 millimeters, 350 to 400 millimeters. Looking further inland into central and northern Laos, up to 200 millimeters, and then parts of Myanmar, northern Thailand could see around 100 to 200 millimeters of rain as well. Looking at the American run over the next 5 days, this is a little bit more bullish, but it is possible because the system could become a major typhoon. The other runs aren't handling that as well. The American run shows rainfall totals as high as 300 to 400 millimeters for parts of Hainan Island, and then rainfall totals as much as 400 to 500 millimeters for wherever it makes landfall into the north in parts of Vietnam. And then looking into parts of Laos, even rainfall totals as much as 360 millimeters. And then looking farther inland, it does get lower because the system will try to fall apart. Looking at the German run over the next 5 days, Hainan Island gets a little bit less rain, only around 230 millimeters. That's still quite a lot. But then looking into parts of Vietnam, up to 450 to 500 millimeters of rainfall are possible. Again, wherever it makes landfall. And you can see these outer bands that are going to continuously slam the coast. They're moving towards the west. That's going to quickly pile up rainfall totals, and that's why you can see totals of 400 millimeters plus just along the coast and offshore. Looking further inland in parts of Laos, you can see rainfall totals of 200 millimeters or so in parts of Thailand there. Getting even more pockets of heavier rainfall up to 300 millimeters. And then looking further inland into parts of Myanmar, up to 100 to 150 millimeters of rain are possible. And again, this is the rainfall threats. And looking at the Joint Typhoon Warning Center forecast, this is their latest forecast as of 18 Zulu. They did have it as a high-end tropical storm, severe tropical storm, nearly typhoon, and they didn't really show a whole lot of strengthening. They showed it peaking at around winds of 70 knots. I think this is their latest forecast. Yes. But surprisingly now it's almost likely a 75 knots, so this is underdoing it quite a lot. The system is likely to become a major Category 3 typhoon. Alright, now let's answer some questions. Then the system's going to quickly weaken as it moves inland and stay a remnant low by the 26th. Alright, TC mentions, I think Kajiki might be rapidly intensifying according to your cone of uncertainty. Yes, in that cone of uncertainty, it does strengthen by, I believe, 30 knots in 24 hours, so it is expected to, we are predicting it will rapidly intensify over the next 24 hours, and this could be underdoing it, honestly. The system is already getting its core together, and it's really just, it could become even stronger, maybe Category 4, maybe even try to reach Category 5 status. Just too uncertain as of right now, so I'm only predicting really a Category 3 peak out of this, mid-ranged. Ryan says, you know, I just hate how the National Hurricane Center stopped tracking Aaron, even though it's a Category 2 extratropical. Well, they stopped tracking it. The Ocean Prediction Center is the one who's now tracking it. So the government is tracking it. It's just a different agency. I will show you what it looks like on there. You can see Aaron right over here, hurricane force low. And there it is. It's going to speed off to the northeast. And then you can see the developing storm over here, and you can see the next tropical waves. So it's a handoff. See what else. Ryan's says, Chase, do you think Fernand poses a threat to the eastern seaboard? No, I do not. I will pull that up. The only place that I think could see impacts are parts of Bermuda and Newfoundland, just mainly surf. The wind probabilities are quite low, so I don't expect a whole lot out of that. Now let's see. Bink Bonk says hello. Hi, how are you doing? Wicked says hello. Hi. Bink Bonk asks, are there strong winds in the rain bands? Yes. Now they're not as strong as the core of the storm. These the typhoon force winds are most likely confined to the eye wall. Now these storms, though, could still have strong winds. If you've ever been in a very strong thunderstorm, those can have strong winds and knock down trees and knock out power. So these bands, these outer rain bands that are getting a lot of the lightning activity, these could have some pretty strong winds of 60, 70, even higher kilometers an hour winds. I think I'm even underdoing that. Now there are going to be some supercells even off to the north that could have some possible tornadoes, even some of these outer rain bands. So just something to keep an eye out on. If it's thunderstorming, it's best to stay indoors. Kajiki. Yep. Tara says, honestly, considering the latest microwave past, the reflectivity on radar, and the convection in waters and no shear, I'm extremely concerned for Vietnam right now. This little shear. Yeah, I mean, the problem with this is that the environment is pristine for it to really ramp up in intensity. So this system could become a Category 3, Category 4, even Category 5. It's just time is the limiting factor. It only has 24 hours to really ramp up. So right now I'm only predicting a Category 3 peak, around 105 knots. At this point, maybe 110 knot landfall. But we'll see how quickly this storm is able to ramp up. This is including a rapid intensification, the bare minimum of rapid intensification. Ryan's asked, do you think Newfoundland is at a threat? I wouldn't really expect much impacts at all for parts of Newfoundland. Yeah, even the rainfall threat from this system, and maybe if it combines or moves to the northwest, possibly. I don't really think that solution's going to verify. Nope. So I'm not really expecting any impacts for Newfoundland. Bro Limeng asks, is Kajiki, or Kajiki? Hold on, Kajiki. I thought that's how you pronounce it. Here, let me pull this up again off stream.
Kajiki.
Kajiki. Alright. So they ask, is it moving down in the latest frames? If it did, this storm will have more time to strengthen, possibly a Category 4 peak. And I was mentioning the fact that it could even try and strengthen to a Category 5 before it moves inland into Vietnam. It's just time is the limiting factor. So it is likely to make landfall at peak intensity. Because even if something like an eyewall replacement cycle starts, it's already going to be so strong by the time it makes landfall in Vietnam. There's not enough time for it to really complete it and weaken. See, Ryan says my prediction for it is around 90 to 100 miles an hour. Well, I believe it's around 85 right now. So I personally think it's going to get a lot stronger than that. Around 120 miles an hour is my estimate. Tara says it also shifted away from Hainan, and it will likely stay in the pristine conditions longer. Yes, that's a problem there. The fact that it's staying more to the south, it did that little wobble to the south. And that's why it's likely to become a pretty powerful, strong typhoon before it makes landfall in Vietnam. As Binky Monk mentions how arid is meant to make it far, yeah. Could become a Category 2 post-tropical system. This is where it's at right now. It's forecasted to reach around 100 mile an hour winds on Sunday evening, or Sunday afternoon. There it is right now. And you can see the front, which is located right around here. Pull it up on, oops. It's a huge cold front it's bringing with it. I believe you can see it. Oh, well, I pulled that off. Anyways, yeah, Broling Meng, it could become a Category 5. That I'm not going to rule that out. We've seen that try to happen with Yagi when it became a Category 4. So, I mean, it's totally possible. I'm not going to rule out the possibility that this could try to become a Category 5. We've seen storms that explode in intensity from Category 1 to Category 5 in 24 hours. The problem, though, is the system's a little bit broader. Now, compared to other systems in the South China Sea, this is a fairly compact system. But generally, its eye is not a pinhole, so I don't expect this to explode like a pinhole would. But we still could see the system rapidly intensify into a Category 3, 4, but 5 is quite unlikely. It still could, though. XL Digital Gamer says by far, or so far, no rains in your place. You're in the direct path of it. Well, stay safe. Be sure to make your preparations or complete them now, especially before these outer bands start impacting you. If you're in the northern portions of Vietnam, yeah, if you're really in Vietnam, you should be experiencing some rain over the next day or so from this band. But not the core of the system yet. Yeah, Wicked mentions a great point there. We've seen before that 24 hours is plenty of time for storms to rapidly strengthen. Not looking good for Vietnam. Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of storms quickly strengthen in either the Gulf of Tonkin or in this general area just south of Hainan Island over the past 1 to 2 years, so again, it wouldn't surprise me if this becomes a major typhoon. Yes, Broly Meng also mentions Yagi. That was a different system. That was already a strong storm by the time it was reaching Hainan Island. This one is likely going to make landfall at peak intensity. Now we'll see how strong it gets. I think that Yagi was the strongest landfall ever in Vietnam as a low-end Category 4, and this may try to beat that. We'll see. Weather in 2D asks, if this storm was further east, could the system become major? Well, it could already become major where it is right now. Like, over the next 24 hours or so, this could try to become a major typhoon. Now, if it had more time, that makes the forecast a little bit more complex. If it undergoes an eyewall replacement cycle and weakens, but overall, time is the limiting factor, so if it had more time, it would try to strengthen even further. Let's see. Someone asked a good question. How do you pronounce it? I have it right here.
Kajiki.
Kajiki. Hello, expunged. Kajiki. Because it's a Vietnam name? Or wait, no, hold on. It's not from... Wait, I know what it is. That's what it would be pronounced in Vietnam. Now I want to pull up... I'm going to pull this up off stream. And I'm going to figure out who submitted the name. It was Japan. So it's Japanese.
Kajiki.
Kajiki. Kajiki. Okay. Kajiki. Kajiki.
Kajiki.
Kajiki there.
Kajiki.
Kajiki. Okay, I guess I'll pronounce it Kajiki then. But as a reminder though, the system is likely to deliver major impacts regardless of how strong it gets in the form of rainfall, mainly to wherever it makes landfall into the north. But if it does become a major typhoon, there's also going to be the impacts of wind as well. Very powerful winds. Now, we currently aren't forecasting any extreme impacts from this system. I don't know if I should have. I don't really think I should have there with this. Doesn't seem like anything too catastrophic with the system. Just going to be still though, major impacts are nothing to scoff about. Let's see. XL Digital Gamer mentions there might be a downpour at night, I guess, but due to I'm in the city, Vin, so it isn't going to affect us much. I'm going to pull up where that is. Oh, right there, I see it. Hey, you're about to get impacts possibly from this strong thunderstorm you see right over here. That's continuing to move further there. It may miss you to the southwest. Oh, but I mean, there is a lot of rain there, so you may see impacts from a thunderstorm. Looks like there was a bolt of lightning right over there to your northeast. But here, if we look at the rainfall forecast for you over the next 5 days or so, the European run showing 320 millimeters of rainfall, the American run showing 375 millimeters, and the German run showing around 380 millimeters. So again, generally totals of around 300 to 400 millimeters are possible for you. And again, the forecast though, the center doesn't go really towards you, it's just the northern part of all that rainfall continuing to pound you in combination of these outer bands. Weather in 2D asks, currently looking at satellites, seems like the wind field is slowly shrinking. Let's take a look at the satellite imagery here. I wouldn't say shrinking. It's still trying to remain the same size. I don't really think it's shrinking. The main thing you want to look at on whether or not it's shrinking is going to be the eye. And over the past hour, yes, thankfully Windy updated their radar stuff. This is pretty helpful in seeing over the past hour, and I can drag it, and it's actually quite smooth. Shout out to Windy for this update. Anyways, though, the main focus is going to be on this core. And you can see it continuing to get more organized. You could see this open slot on the northern side earlier. And now it's just continuing to get better and better organized. Now, however small that eye gets, that's going to allow for it to strengthen even quicker as if it was like a pinhole storm. Now, looking at the size of it, though, it's around a 45 kilometer wide eye, 28 mile wide eye. So I mean, it's quite a large eye. That's really, I don't know if it's the good thing about it, preventing it from exploding, but still, it could strengthen quite dramatically over the next 24 hours. Let's see. Binky Bonk mentions a supercell thunderstorm just missed me the other day. Well, that's good that it missed you. Weather in 2D says 12.7 degrees north. I'm going to look at where that stuff is. 12.7 degrees north. It should be about at that latitude there. And let me see their other message or other coordinates, 132 degrees east. Right around here. I'm not sure. I feel like that the main portion of the disturbance is actually down here of 93W. There's overall a broad circulation in here, but it looks like the main portion of it is to the south there. Maybe it's just a broad circulation overall. But it seems like the fact that there's a lot of thunderstorms blowing up on that southern side there, that it may try to form a center somewhere down there. Let's see, Tara mentions, oh man, infrared shows pretty good wrapping on it. Let's look at that again. Yeah, especially on the eastern side, and we have a new convective burst on that northern side there. Pretty much in basic terms, it is organizing. Let's see. Yes, XL Digital Gamer mentions the fact that there's a chance that Hainan Island brush might disrupt the system a bit. Are they in the cone? Not really. I don't see the possibility of it brushing against Hainan Island anymore. Honestly, I just don't see that happening, yeah. In the forecast cones here, I don't see that happening. At most, to just go stay to the south. I don't think that it's going to really brush up against it, unfortunately. Man, I mean, this windy update is pretty neat. Okay, now we can see the southeastern portion of the radar now showing up, and you can see that thunderstorm right over here in those outer bands. On radar, though, you can see just how large of an influence it's having in parts of, I believe it's called Indochina. I'm not sure, just southeastern Asia. I know the time zone's Indochina. Of course, this stuff isn't really going to happen. It'd be pretty cool if they had a radar updates thing for forecasting. But yeah, you could just see how much lightning activity is happening on that northwestern side in the Gulf of Tonkin there. A lot of thunderstorms. It has weakened a little bit as it approaches the coast of Vietnam, but well, I mean, you could see still a lot of thunderstorm, a lot of lightning, not as much as what it was like before. But there is still a good amount, which could still cause some flash flooding in parts of this area where I'm kind of circling right over here in parts of Vietnam. Weather in 2D asks, could the island also increase storm relative helicity, causing supercells to form on the northeastern side of it? Now that is totally possible that there could be, I'd say isn't it going to be on the northwestern side, I think? Yeah, because it's moving to the west. That means that the dirty side would be on the, if it's moving that direction, that means it's all going to be happening on the northwestern side. So it may already be happening on parts of Hainan Island here. We may be seeing some supercells try to develop, and these could be all tornadic as they move that direction. And speaking of which, these bands here may contain some water spouts or potentially tornadoes if they move on land. So again, that is going to be another concern. All good. I'm going to actually take a look at a sounding to see what it would look like. Oops. Okay. Okay, I'm going to pull up the American run here. And And let's go... Can I go continental? This may work, may not. Okay. So I'm going to take a sounding from Hainan Island. This is a bit complicated, but let's see. Okay, marginal severe. Okay, it does still have some spin to it. Let me look in the Gulf of Tonkin there. Not looking too great. Let me wait until the storm's a little bit closer there. Yeah, I'm not seeing a whole lot for tornado potential. That's some tornado potential, but that's not really in the outer bands. That's mainly in the core, so I don't really expect any tornadoes out of that. Maybe on the northern side? No, not really seeing a whole lot of a tornado potential out of this. Alright. Oh yeah, you can see that burst there now, continuing to move northwestwards, surrounding it there, and you can see the eye starting to pop out on infrared. Curious if I can get a little bit of a stacked look at it. Again, here's the general location of the eye on radar. And if we take a look at the eye on infrared, or satellite imagery here, you can see where that's located. Whoops. Okay, dang it. I accidentally removed it. Okay, I'm going to change the color a bit to something like, I think blue would look nice. Again, that's where the eye is located at on radar, and we compare that to what it looks like on satellite imagery. You can see kind of how it's stacked. The northeastern side of that eye wall there, bursting around, and it's kind of covering the eye a bit. The main portion of the eye, though, you can see it on the northwestern part, is starting to appear on satellite imagery. See what other questions. I'll ask, what category is it right now? It's likely a category 1 at this point, with winds of around 75 knots, so mid-range category 1. In 12 hours, it should intensify to a category 2, mid-range category 2, and in 24 hours, it should intensify into a mid-range category 3, maybe even stronger, is what we're concerned about. Weather in 2D asks, do you think it will have time to do an eyewall replacement cycle before it makes landfall? No, I do not. I don't think it has enough time. Doesn't look like it's going to undergo one. It's trying to develop its core right now, so don't think it's going to try and develop a secondary core around it just yet, at least. It's trying to develop its first eyewall mainly. See what else. Weather in 2D asks, will the southern side be the mainly flooding risk? No, it's actually going to be on the northern side mainly of wherever the center goes is going to be getting the worst flooding out of the system, because it's just going to be that constant onshore flow combined with some of those bands. Let me actually use this. Okay, it resets to red. It's going to be onshore flow there, so you get a lot of moisture from the South China Sea moving inland instead of the dry continental air on the western and southern portions. Mainly wherever it's running, though, it's going to be strongest on that northern side. And so that's why we're seeing the most amount of impacts happening generally to the north of wherever the center goes. Tara asked, well, I just got back and I think it's trying to make a somewhat clear-eye just by looking at the wrapping. Yep, discussed that earlier there. If we take a look at where the radar imagery shows the eye, generally around here, and we compare that with what the satellite imagery is showing, the infrared, you can see here how the southeastern portion of that eye wall got all these convective bursts right on the southeastern side of it, wrapping around and covering the eye a bit. But on the northwestern side, it's a little bit weaker, so you can see the eye trying to pop up there. Man, you can just see the powerful thunderstorm to the northwest. I'm curious what this stuff looks like on visible imagery. We should have a mesosector for it. Yes. Yep, and you can see visible imagery there. Its eye starting to pop out more and more. I'm going to actually pull up a tool called Real Earth. I'm going to look at the satellite imagery on here. So I believe it's Himawari target. Okay, just trying to load up wherever it is. There it is. Wow, what a beauty it looks like on here. Let me zoom out a bit. There's the thunderstorms in the Gulf of Tonkin that are trying to move towards Vietnam. And there's the storm itself with all those convective bursts. Okay, it looks like this is every 10 minutes. Alright, I'm gonna apply a much longer loop. Oh yeah, the sunrise on it. Here, I'm going to remove these first frames, I think, until I get to around, I guess, the first 17 frames. This might work better, yeah. Yep. There it is. You can see all those intense thunderstorms there wrapping around the center of the storm. There's Hainan Island for reference on the northwestern part of that loop. I'm going to see if I can download this as an MP4 here. Work. Nope, that downloaded as a PNG. That's not what I meant. There we go. Now that's actually helpful. I'll probably make a post about that later. Let's see. Oh, Bingy Bonk asked, was chasing Helene scary? Not as scary as Milton, because we didn't have to worry about storm surge. Helene was kind of a fun chase. Was at a gas station the whole time. But yeah, I mean, we felt safe. We knew what to do. Will there be a rain shadow effect west of Hainan Island, or will the abundance of moisture in the ocean refill any void in rainfall? What do you mean by a rain shadow? Man, yeah, the storm is getting its act together. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty satisfying to see all these cumulus clouds at the top, the puffiness of them on this kind of satellite imagery. And there's the eye popping out. I think we may be able to get to new frame out of this if I update this. Nope. See, rain shadows and thunderstorms will slowly die out over land, causing less thunderstorm rain on the west side. Oh, I guess so. I don't know though, because it's going to be moving over Southeastern Asia, where when a storm typically moves over there, there's going to be a lot of moisture involved with it, like Yagi did. So I don't know about that. I feel like flooding is going to be a concern as it continues moving westwards, west-northwestwards into like parts of Myanmar. That's why there's possibly slight impacts that could occur there. Let's see, is there any storm surge risk? Now, I'm not sure about that. I'm guessing that there is going to be some on the northern side of it, but I'm not sure about their elevation in terms of how vulnerable they are to storm surge. Expunged asks, what are the chances of it becoming a Category 4? I'd give it around a... Here, actually, I believe something else I can show you all to see the probabilities of its rapid intensification. Dang, okay, this doesn't work. I thought that this would work. Right, I guess I'll pull this up instead. I think that this is a better thing to show. Alright. Yep, right here, the rapid intensification probabilities for all these storms. For Kajiki. Hold on, I'm going to play that again. Sorry, guys. Let me just make sure I know. Kajiki. So it's at around 65 knots as of right now. Looking at the rapid intensification probabilities now, I don't know what the difference is between these two. And what's the best one to use? I forget which one's the... Here, I'm gonna compare this with something else real quick, just so that way I know which one's the actual good numbers to use. Let's see here, 17% for that, which would be... Where the heck is it getting? Okay. I don't know, Reapa's something completely different than what I was looking at. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, though, looking at the rapid intensification probabilities for this storm. So 65 knots. Now I'm going to do some math real quick. So the probabilities of its rapidly intensifying into a Category 3, that would be 35 knots. And within 24 hours or so, that's basically the landfall time. So all of these are pretty much within landfall time. This model here giving around a 73% chance of becoming a Category 3, 65% on there, 82%, 30, and 60% chance. So I'm going to say it's around a 70% chance of becoming, or 65 to 70% chance of it actually reaching Category 3 strength. And then looking at the Category 4, which that would be 115 knots, so we just do... So the closest thing to that is going to be this 55 knot category in 36 hours, which is basically 24 hours until it makes its landfall there. I'd give it around a 20 to 30% chance of reaching Category 4 status. And then looking at the probabilities of Category 5, which I think that is going to be... No, it doesn't show probabilities of Category 5, or does it? No, it shows 70, so it shows 155 miles an hour, so just on the cusp of becoming a Category 5. Probabilities of around 1 to 17%, so I'd give it around I'd say around a 5% chance of it reaching Category 5 strength. It's totally possible. I wouldn't say it's the most likely. Of course, I don't think it's completely likely that it's going to do that. See, Weather in 2D asks, what is the general terrain around where it makes landfall? Let's pull up one of these maps here that shows distance and things like that. If I show where it's going, which it should be going near... Where was that one place? Badon, there it is. If I show you all the distance on here, we can see in the beginning it's quite low as to how high the elevation is. Not a whole lot there. Some areas of 10 meters there. It takes a while for it to climb up an or not a while actually. Until it reaches the coast or the border of Laos and Vietnam, that's when it's going to go through this mountainous terrain over here. Before then it relaxes some as it enters Thailand. Let's see what else. I actually think, Weather in 2D says, I actually think Hainan Islands is creating an opposite effect. Seems like the hilly terrain is pushing the moist air upwards, creating thunderstorm activity. Biggie Bong asks, what is the website that shows rapid intensification chances? This is complicated. I like to use Tomer Berg's website, but this is I just search up AI rapid intensification index, something like that, online. Now it doesn't show the invest, which is a little bit annoying. Let's see what else what other questions there are. Also, how do the aircraft recon charts work? I'll explain that when there's a storm with recon. Oh, JTWC updated. Let's take a look at their newest forecast. Now again, their last forecast called for a 70 knot peak. It's likely stronger than that at that point. There we go. Now they're forecasting an 80 knot peak, so winds of around 90 miles an hour, but I still think that that's underdoing it for its peak. Let's see. Linux says the Western Pacific has been performing poorly in typhoons this year. I don't really think so. I'm going to pull up my analysis real quick on typhoons. Yeah, I mean, nothing too crazily strong. We've had a decent amount of typhoons, just nothing really major. Let's see, Expunge asks, are you going to post another short soon? We may be doing a live coverage tomorrow when it makes its landfall. Again, if you have any questions, you can always let me know in the chat and I will gladly answer. Weather in 2D asks, do you think we will see a major typhoon form before the season ends? Oh, definitely, yeah. I don't think that Dennis is going to be the only major typhoon. Again, this could become a major typhoon. So, I don't know, it's been awfully quiet. I'm going to look internationally real quick at everything going on. So starting out with the Atlantic, of course we have 99L, which isn't doing too great as of the latest scatterometer pass, but that's going to move westwards. Nothing really pops out, grabs my attention. Looking in the Eastern Pacific, of course we have this disturbance. We could see other things spin up along the ITCZ. Maybe some more storms beyond the 10-day range. Looking in the Central Pacific, I don't think that there's going to be a whole lot here. Nope. And looking in the Western Pacific, I think that this area is also quieted down a bit. something in the South China Sea at a 93 W, and then something by Taiwan, maybe. Staying fairly quiet. Now looking at the North Indian Ocean. I'm not seeing a whole lot out of that. Maybe a land depression or two that may try to form. And then looking at the Southwest Indian Ocean. Not really seeing a whole lot of this at all. Maybe a circulation trying to develop. Just not really seeing anything at all. Looking at the South Pacific here. Same story, nothing really catching my attention there. So it's going to be a little bit of a quieter period, I think, over the next week at least, after Kajiki. Well, on a global scale, how active do you think this season has been for the Northern Hemisphere? Let's see, I'm trying to think. How would I compare activity in the Northern Hemisphere? I think that if I went over each basin, I'd say that the North Atlantic has been pretty active, especially from Aaron. I mean, we're above average there. The Eastern Pacific had a pretty good start, but now it's starting to fall behind. Central Pacific was doing pretty good as well, actually. And the Western Pacific, kind of average. I guess it's been doing above average overall. Pretty interesting, though, that the North Atlantic was the first basin to get the Category 5 in that Northern Hemisphere this year. Tara mentions infrared shows eye clearing out faster, starting to get even more concerned for Vietnam. Let's take a look at that. Oops. Oh, wow, yeah. Yeah, you can see that eye starting to clear. Let's take a look at the... Where did he put this? I think it's on here, and if I go to... Whoops. Yes, he has the target area over here. Let's see, and looking at this, we can see the eye temperature of this storm. Yep, this is starting to rise gradually. Eye temperature is around minus 45 Celsius, is that right? I think so. Yep, there it is, so. Starting to rise. It wasn't like that earlier, so I wouldn't really discount anything to the left of this line right here. You can see it gradually starting to warm up, meaning it's clearing, it's showing that it's strengthening, low wind shear. Again, they're looking at real Earth. Let's see if we can get some more up-to-date imagery on it. Yeah, you can really see that eye there. A little bit of cirrus there still blocking it. The upper level clouds. Oh, yes. Yes, thank you guys so much for reminding me about the North Indian Ocean. I completely forgot about that basin. I forgot that it even existed. The North Indian Ocean, it's done kind of okay, I guess, with its land depressions and stuff like that. Land storm, even. But of course, they haven't named anything. So that basin hasn't done that great. So I'd say it's actually kind of average Northern Hemisphere so far. Weather in 2D asks, what do you think 99L will do? Let's look at that storm. 99L, I'd like to look at the latest scatterometer data from it. Because it should be out now. No, it's still not. Okay. At least on here. It should be out on Depaya's website. I saw someone already post about it before, showing it doesn't look that great. Okay, now I'm guessing this isn't gonna work. I'm guessing it's still not out just yet. Yeah, it's still not out just yet. But anyways, the scatterometer pass showed that it didn't really have a sharp trough at all, so it wasn't doing great really at all. So because of that, it's going to be struggling by the time it enters the Eastern Caribbean, and it could really get shredded apart. I thought it could have been a tropical cyclone by around 18Z or 0Z, but it looks like it's struggled even more so. But the Windward Islands should pay attention to this storm, as there is going to be a decent amount of rain, maybe 50 millimeters or so. So you could see some flooding from this. In the long range, though, if it survives, it could be a threat in the Gulf of Mexico, but I don't know if it's even going to survive. In that area of interest box there, I gave it a 60% chance in the next 48 hours, a 70% chance in 7 days, mainly giving it a 10% chance over in this region, and mainly the 60% chance over in this region. It's going to have to go through the graveyard over here, the hostile conditions. Realer Earth. This. Weather enthusiast asks, what does the eye temperature mean for a storm? It basically means how much is the satellite able to peak down in the center of the storm there. Pretty much, the cloud temperatures also show how tall the storm is. The clearer the eye, the higher the temperature. So pretty much, it shows like how much debris there is, how much is covering the eye. If you think about it, the satellites scan for temperature, so you can see these areas have higher temperatures than these areas, because clouds are cold, the tops of them at least. And so the warmer it is, the more the satellite's able to peek through at the ground, closer to the ground. There's less clouds blocking it, pretty much. Let's see if there's any other questions. This is, I think it's icing. Yes, weather in 2D, higher temperature, clearer eye. That's what that means, pretty much. You can see the cold cloud tops around it, because as you go up in the atmosphere, it gets colder. Until you reach, I think it's the stratosphere, then it inverts. But anyways, the main, like the basic idea though, is the higher up, the taller the clouds, the colder they appear on the satellites. So if the eye there, remember the eye is like a vertical thing of like 60,000 feet or so that it needs to clear. It needs to vacuum all that out, all the clouds out of there. It needs to dry pretty much. So you can see all these thunderstorms wrapping around it, or leaving a space for the eye to try and pop out. At the lower levels, you could see that, the eye, pretty clearly. If I pull this up here, you can see it on there. But it's just not making its way all the way up to the top. I don't know about comparing this storm with others, its eye wall replacement cycles and stuff like that. Yes, it did make landfall in the Philippines potentially as a tropical cyclone. I haven't done my reanalysis on this storm just quite yet, so I haven't determined whether or not it was a tropical cyclone when it made landfall in the Philippines or when it crossed over. Alright, I'm probably going to wrap things up now. Hopefully this gave you all a better idea on this storm. I will likely be doing another live stream tomorrow, potentially during its landfall. I start college on Monday, so hopefully it doesn't wait too long to make its landfall. Tomorrow. Yeah, Burlimeng, but it could have been a tropical cyclone then. Alright, now going over a brief overview of this storm again. It's expected to become a major typhoon over the next 24 hours before it slams into Vietnam, delivering major impacts wherever it makes landfall into the north. That is going to be pretty heavy rainfall of 300 to 500 millimeters of rain, possibly major typhoon force winds. And then as it goes further inland, it's going to expand that rainfall threat. And yeah, pretty much this is going to be something we'll need to watch over the next 24 hours to see how much the storm rapidly intensifies. So I wouldn't rule out a Category 4 or 5 just quite yet. Again, I'd give it around a 70% chance of becoming a Category 3, around a 20% chance of becoming a Category 4, and around a 5% chance of reaching Category 5 status. Yes. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next update. Stay safe.